Okay, but their message
killed by
means
the
nothing
police.
if they do these Gestapo tactics.
That's fucked up! Let him go! What the fuck?
See, they lose all credibility.
2015.
The group is never going to be taken seriously, and their message is going to fall upon ears only sympathetic to them.
The Black Lives Matter movement began after several cases of police brutality across the nation became public news. In almost all of the cases, the police officers were not held responsible or given light sentences.
Mr. Dent was stopped for a minor traffic offense and ordered out of his vehicle. With his hands extended out of his driver's window, he was grabbed out, thrown to the ground, and struck 16 times in the head.
In 2013, George Zimmerman shot and killed Trayvon Martin. Only a year later, the death of Eric Gardner would also occur. On August 9, 2014, the death of Michael Brown occurred in Ferguson, Missouri, and within a day, riots occurred. Throughout this time, the hashtag Black Lives Matter began to trend on social media, and the founders of the group would take a prominent role in organizing protests. On the Black Lives Matter Facebook page, it states that their goal is to build connections between Black people and our allies to fight anti-racism, to spark dialogue amongst Black people, and to facilitate the type of connections necessary to encourage social actions and engagements.
The responding police officers arrived as the defendant is wrestling the defendant to the ground. Mr. Dent was struck, kicked, and tased while on the ground.
As the Black Lives Movement gained more traction, the news outlets began to condemn this group.
I don't have a full understanding of what these particular protesters want other than capturing the spotlight.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they're asking.
Well, I don't think only interested in condemning white society. That's all.
Tensions escalated after people began to say that all lives matter and that the African American life should not matter more than anyone else's. Yet this was never the intention of the group. The idea behind the saying was that many African Americans felt as if they had a significant disadvantage over their white counterparts.
They're celebrated after the defendant was beaten and cuffed. The video in the car shows the police officers fist bumping as a celebratory act of bravery by the defendant and his cohorts.
Many minority groups are often stereotyped in the media, which causes a person to consciously or subconsciously create an idea towards a particular group. For instance, African males are often depicted as thugs or violent individuals who should be feared, while African American females are often over-sexualized and at times use sex as a tool against men. These stereotypes have existed for decades and can even be traced back to slave times.
What crime did I commit? Being a black man in a Cadillac, stopped for a minor traffic offense by a group of racist police officers looking to do a nigger.
Plantation owners in the South were often outnumbered by the number of slaves that they owned and used cruel punishment to prevent their slaves from revolting. Slave owners often justified their actions by stating that the slaves were not humans but property. This idea connects to cognitive dissonance. For instance, a 70-year-old male smoker might say that it's okay he smokes 2 cigarettes a day because when he was younger he smoked a pack a day. He is justifying to himself why it is okay to continue smoking by using the excuse that he is not smoking as much as he once did. This relates back to slavery because once the slave owners stopped seeing and treating the slaves as humans, it became easier for them to exert harm to their slaves. These feelings of prejudice would continue to expand even after the end of slavery in America.
He was left in a cell for a number of hours before getting medical treatment.
As the mid-20th century arrived, so did the emergence of television shows and movies. This was a time of media creativity explosion. Iconic characters such as Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny were just a few things that came out of this time. Nowadays, there are thousands of channels and many more shows for our viewing pleasure. This large amount of shows would give the illusion of a diverse amount of ideas and influence, but this is not true. In an article published by the Business Insider, it stated that 90% of all media is controlled by only 6 companies, which include GE, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS. It should also be noted that the heads of these companies are lacking much diversity as well, leaving only a handful of white individuals making the final say on creative decisions.
But after hearing the defendant and his fellow officers joke about his injuries as they were wiping blood off their uniforms with disinfectant.
This means when a minority group is depicted in media, it is through the interpretation of a white individual rather than the individual of the minority group. When a person outside of a minority group tries to interpret a group, it will always be through some form of bias. Oftentimes, it is used for more insidious motives. For instance, many old-school cartoon artists often depicted African Americans with large lips and as lazy individuals, even though both characteristics were widely known as derogatory terms towards African Americans. This was also the time when white individuals referred to the African American culture as the white burden. As time moved forward, racism was depicted in media in more subtle ways. Instead of being blatantly racist in portrayals of minority groups, movies like The Lion King made Scar, a darker-looking lion, out to be the bad guy, while Mufasa and Simba, the lighter lions, were considered the good guys. This trend became very popular with media geared towards children. As children grow up, they are heavily influenced by what they see and interact with. This does not exclude the content on media. For individuals who say that media does not influence a child, they should take a longer look at the media that their children are seeing and how it represents its characters. In children's shows, the protagonist is usually depicted as a lighter-skinned male, while the villain is usually from a foreign country having a thick accent or a person who is darker skinned. This is doing two things. First, it is telling a minority child that they will always be the bad person regardless of whatever story that they are in. Second, this lesson is telling white children that anyone who does not look like them should be thought as a threat. In the famous doll experiment done by Kenneth and Mamie Clark, they wanted to test children's perception of race. They placed African American children in front of two dolls and asked a series of questions. Both dolls were identical with the exception of the skin color, one doll being a white doll and the other doll being a black doll. 66% of the children during this survey answered that they thought the lighter doll was the good doll simply because it looked white. The study was recreated Here were the results.
Which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the bad doll? Which doll is the ugly doll? Why is that doll ugly?
Because he's black.
Which doll looks most like you?
Like me?
Yeah, which one looks like you?
And that one.
Studies relating to the effects media has on children show that the more an idea or image is reinforced to a child, the more the message resonates with the child. With many children constantly seeing a non-stop portrayal of their culture in a negative description, it is not hard to see why these children would then in turn see themselves as inferior to their white counterparts. Also, as these children grow up, the portrayal becomes more negative. The news reports crime done by minorities significantly more than that of their white counterparts. All of these influences make people in our society constantly question their own racial groups as well as other groups. This in return causes us to view our world as a much darker place. George Gardner coined this term as the mean syndrome. The mean syndrome also halts progress between racial groups because it causes each group to mistrust each other. With so many influences making individuals question one another, there should be no surprise that things would eventually escalate. Black Lives Matter was created to help the African American culture deal with these types of problems.
It's amazing how poor cities like Flint can find millions of dollars to attempt to reverse a situation that $100 a day could and would have prevented. The legislators said we didn't know about Flint or we didn't intervene sooner. The government's responsibility is not solely to save money, but is to protect its citizenry.
It seems like you have a lot on your mind right now. Do you feel comfortable talking to me about it?
I don't want to talk about it.
Alright, well, you know, they do say that writing letters about whatever's on your mind might help you out. I mean, I know you're not comfortable talking to me, but at least getting the words out there could really help out.
Where were you when you said that I loved you? Where were you when you promised to be there? Where were you when you promised me the world and more? Where were you when you left me cold? Where were you when I called the phone? Where were you on the days it was my birthday? Where were you? I tried reaching out to you, but it didn't work. I did everything, now I am overworked. Are you happy about everything you did to me? Why is this happening? Why did you leave me? What did I do wrong to make you leave? It's not my fault when you actually wanted to leave. Are you happy about everything you did to me? Cause growing up without you made me who I am. Ooh, this letter is for you. This letter is for you. So read it and cherish it. Cause now this letter is for you. This letter is for you. So read it and cherish it. 'cause now I'm done. Where were you when you said that I loved you? Where were you when you promised to be there? Where were you when you promised me the world and more? Where were you when you left me cold? Where were you when I called the phone? Where were you on the days it was my birthday? Where were you? I was always hoping that things would work out, trying to plan everything to figure out, going to you every summer of my life to build upon, but you built a bridge. I tried to open up to you, you set me down in the idea too. Every boy needs a father in his life, and damn, I needed you. This letter is for you, this letter is for you, so read it and cherish it, 'cause now I'm done. This letter is for you, this letter is for you, so read it and cherish it, 'cause now I'm done. Where were you when you said that I loved you? Where were you when you promised to be there? Where were you when you promised me that promised me the word and more? Where were you when you left me cold? Where were you when I called the phone? Where were you on the days it was my birthday? Where were you?
I just think it wouldn't work for me.